one of my favorite theologians. I've mentioned to you before. His name is René Girard. He was inducted into France's highest intellectual society. He's a scholar, philosopher, anthropologist, literary critic, and the list goes on. He was 91 when he died during his stint of teaching at Stanford University. He died in 2015. The title of one of Girard's books is a touchstone in our gospel lesson for today. The title of one of his books is "I See Satan Fall Like Lightning." What's important about Girard and vital for the times in which we live is the major premise of his theology, which he says is found here in the Gospel of Luke. The focus is on Jesus' statement, "I see Satan fall like lightning." Girard, this famous intellectual, says, far from being absurd, fantastic, or mythical, Luke speaks plainly about Satan, whose titles and functions include being the tempter, the accuser, the prince of this world, and the murderer from the beginning. I admire Girard's bold and provocative claim. He claims that Jesus in this gospel uncovers a secret that very few discover. That Jesus uncovers a secret that neither ancient or modern anthropologies have ever discovered. Namely, Satan is violence, and violence is Satan. The secret is that to be conscious of this, that Satan is violence and violence is Satan. The consciousness of this makes Satan lose its power. Being conscious of violence, aware of violence, makes Satan lose its power. Keep in mind, violence is not only a physical activity. Jesus tells us this in the Sermon on the Mount, that our emotions, that our viewpoints of others, just as much as our behavior, can be violent. And please know that I'm not agreeing with the trope, "the devil made me do it." No, far from the case. To identify Satan as violence and to know that violence is contagious, the consciousness of this becomes an antidote. To be conscious of violence is the antidote for violence. For violence to thrive, you see, violence thrives in unconsciousness. Violence requires that we dehumanize others, often without even knowing it, so that we can inflict harm, stereotypes, and other negative attributes on others, so that we can imagine that someone is not really human, not really there. The devil made me do it is a trope that invites us back into unconsciousness that Jesus guards against in our gospel lesson today. Jesus teaches us that the moment we know that violence is violence, we wake up to what we are actually doing. Or more accurately, we wake up to who we are becoming. So Jesus yells from the cross, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." Seeing Satan fall like lightning is another way of saying that violence, when revealed, is a contagion of evil. "Dad," my daughter said with force not too long ago, "Dad, you have to watch Black Mirror on Netflix." As a late baby boomer, I was a big fan of the TV show The Twilight Zone, and I had meant to get on board with Black Mirror, which started back in 2015 in the UK. But I'm one of those kinds of persons who find it hard to start something unless I can finish it, and there are so many episodes of Black Mirror. But I recently started to wade in the water of Black Mirror. And one episode helps me illustrate what I'm trying to say in this sermon. It's entitled, interestingly enough, Archangel, which is the second episode in the fourth season, if you want to watch it or rewatch it. It's written by the showrunner and creator Charlie Brooker and directed by the famous actress Jodie Foster. The episode is about a single mother, Marie, who enrolls her young daughter, Sarah, in a medical trial entitled Archangel, which is a neurological technology which allows Marie to track her daughter, Sarah's, location. But not only that, Marie can see what Sarah is currently seeing, can hear what Sarah is currently hearing. Marie, the mother, does all of this because of her 3-year-old daughter, Sarah, who was lost one day following a cat into the wilderness. What's even more special about Archangel is that it allows Marie to censor her daughter's awareness of stressful stimuli by minimizing what her daughter Sarah can actually see and hear. In other words, Marie can control her daughter's reality. So every day, that little Sarah, when she walks to school, she doesn't really see or hear the neighbor's black German shepherd barking furiously at her. 6 years later, Sarah's classmate, interestingly enough, named Trick, tries to show Sarah violent imagery on a website, but the Archangel neurological implant blurs it out. And later, confused by her increasing awareness of Archangel, Sarah draws blood from her finger, trying to learn what blood looks like and pain feels like. Sarah is assessed by a psychologist who recommends that they dispose of Archangel, which is soon to be banned. Marie deactivates the Archangel implant and stores it in an iPad-like tablet up in the attic. And now, nearing the end of the episode, Sarah is 15, Sarah lies to her mother about going to her friend's house and instead attends a party with trick. Marie discovers the lie and goes back up the attic to turn on Archangel. She now sees through Sarah's eyes how she, Sarah, is being intimate with trick and now using drugs with trick. Sarah becomes aware that her mother still uses Archangel and violently takes Archangel away from her mother. The stress filter accidentally reactivates. Unable to see the damage that she is causing, Sarah, using the tablet Archangel, beats her mother unconscious, and in doing so, breaks the tablet. The Archangel glitches with lightning, those symbols for lightning, as Sarah runs away. I see Satan fall like lightning. Jesus doesn't say this by accident. Jesus doesn't say this only as a good idea or trying to be poetic. The difficult spiritual battle we all face is to stay aware that violence is not who we are created to be. In fact, violence is the opposite of creation. The complexity for us is in knowing what Jesus teaches us today, namely that Satan loses its power when we become conscious of ourselves and others. And most of all, when we become conscious of how we affect ourselves and how we affect each other. And even more, when we become conscious of violence in ourselves and in society, Satan loses its power. Jesus teaches us how being conscious of violence causes Satan to fall like lightning. For example, when we confess our sins, as we are about to do, we have light to see how we are hurting ourselves, each other, and most of all, God. Without taking away our freedom, constant confession of sin, and the awareness of God's ubiquitous forgiveness reveal that violence should not be a normal human characteristic. In short, what might have helped the character of the mother Marie in Black Mirror, and what might help us in real life, is to know that God respects our freedom. If God did not respect the freedom for us to be human, if God imposed God's will on us by force or undue influence, then God would be no different than Satan. The poet Mary Oliver asks the essential question: tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? I think Jesus answers in our gospel lesson today by saying, become more aware of fallen angels among us, trying to impose their wills on others. And the reason Jesus says the harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few, is because Jesus invites us to be like God and not submit to the contagion of violence. Very few successfully resist violence, manifest in a myriad of ways. And those of us who love to talk about peace and freedom like myself need to be conscious of how we benefit from others who use violence so that we never have to. Jesus' salvific work provides plenty of peace, plenty of freedom for all of us, not just for some. But it is often difficult to believe that such grace, though plentiful, actually exists. So those of us trying to be good in the world should refrain from boasting about our goodness. So the 70 returned to Jesus saying, "Lord, in your name, even the demons submit to us." And Jesus said to them, "I watched Satan fall from heaven like a flash of lightning. See," Jesus says, "see, I have given you authority to tread on snakes and scorpions and over all the power of the enemy. Nothing will hurt you. Nevertheless, do not rejoice at this. The spirits submit to you, but rejoice that your names are written in heaven." Jesus retools our imaginations toward another way of living. With Jesus, there is another way of seeing, another way of hearing. Instead of the norm of violence, Jesus requests that we discover ourselves as already loved. There's nothing else to prove. This should be enough. We are now called away from violence and instead into the one who gives us the substantive identity we long for, the kingdom of heaven.